Welcome back, everyone, to Grit Daily Startup Show. I'm your host, Jordan French. Hey, today we're going to talk about sports hailing from none other than the Lone Star State capital, Austin, Texas. Evan Floersch is with us from the Texas Ranchers. Evan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Audio is much better this time. I'm going to reveal the third, pull back the third veil or the curtain, as they say. And the skyline behind you, for those who are less initiated in Austin, which is harder and harder to find nowadays. That's Austin, Texas, right there in the background, right, Evan?
It is. Yep, the ever changing skyline here with what often is described as Crane Town now. At any point you can probably see 5 or 6 cranes in the background with all the development going on. So exciting time to be here in Austin.
Yeah, we know it's grown a lot, that's for sure. Maybe decade by decade visits or visual overlaps we'll have to throw on top of the podcast episode so people can see some of the action. I think that might be a theme of this episode. Is that growth, especially it relates back to sports and your role in it. But just even more foundation on Austin because people are just so interested. It's one of the startup capitals for sure, like globally at this point. Used to be keep Austin weird. Is everyone still keeping it weird? Has it been kept weird?
There's still a lot of weird for sure. The DNA, the culture of the city, even with all the growth and the new people coming in, it's still a weird city in its own way.
Hard to defend itself. I was always thinking, and I hope we're not taking too much risk here, but down in San Antonio, the Alamo seemed really difficult to defend. And here in Austin, largely you're wide open on all 4 sides. If people want to move there or tour as tourists, or visit a certain festival once a year, a Formula One race or what have you, pretty easy access and difficult to defend. Evan, it just my first observation. But some background on you because not everyone knows you. Some of the people you work with are household names. And we'll sort of get into that. But some of your background, so you could share and we can lay some foundation of how you got into the sports industry and your role there.
Yeah, definitely, Jordan. I grew up around sports, was a multi-sport athlete, and then played college soccer down at Emory University, and quit my senior year to pursue entrepreneurship. Went through an incredible entrepreneurship program there, and found myself building companies early on, and had some early success. And so, always been a builder, always been an entrepreneur in my career, and took a hard left when in 2021 when there was an opportunity to purchase the Texas Ranchers, not without failure along the way. Went after a team as it was expanding to 16 franchises, but I'm not LeBron James and Tom Brady and Kevin Durant and Anheuser-Busch, and so I was not awarded one of the expansion teams. That said, knocked on this older Texas gentleman's door and asked him if he wanted to sell the Texas Ranchers franchise. And he realized at that moment, with all the growth, all the resources pouring into Major League Pickleball, that he wanted in his words, smaller piece of a larger pie. So we bought the team from him and have been operating it since.
Yeah, it looks super cool. I mean, so much we can pick at there. We won't hold it against you that you're not Kevin Durant or LeBron James. Like we were carefully listening. Well, we won't hold you to that standard. Just get Evan. Careers early, so who knows where these things go. But just sort of globally, right? I mean, certainly daunting. This idea of sort of a new sport, right? The pedestrians among us out here. You would think, Evan, that most of the sport world had been categorically designed, right? To use maybe an apt business term here. Sounds like that's conventional wisdom that you can dispel for all of us.
On Major League Pickleball?
Yeah, as it relates to pickleball, right? As this entrant of a new sport.
Yeah, in terms of and what with the growth from a business standpoint, I missed the question.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, just categorically, right? I mean, for what seems like decades, and maybe for the better better part of a century, what we conceive as sort of major sports is somewhat
Definitely.
stable, right? I think that's a reasonable conventional wisdom. Everything from your basketball and baseball being staples, ice hockey, maybe perhaps a somewhat newer one for us south of the Canadian border, but none that's relatively stable. It looked like over the last maybe even just a couple years, but certainly decade, pickleball is this new entrant. And what maybe looked like a fad at first,
Yeah.
it's here to stay. Evan.
I'd say now is, and that I'll go on record saying this, that now is the best time to invest in pickleball, both at the amateur level and then also at the pro level. The white space that exists, not just in the U.S. still, but in some of the emerging pickleball markets around the world, is really exciting. And now that the PPA and MLP, Professional Pickleball Tour or Association, and Major League Pickleball are one unified entity, the United Pickleball Association. I think the best days of pro pickleball are ahead of us. So we're super excited about the growth of pickleball at the amateur and professional level, and what the next 5, 10, 15 years look like in Major League Pickleball.
Yeah, and since you mentioned it in Major League Pickleball, that's probably something that, from a loose or maybe clear analogy standpoint, people can relate to other sports. Those who are a little less initiated, give us a little history lesson on, sort
Yeah.
of how the organization of it, and the rulemaking bodies came together.
Yep, definitely. So the best way to describe it is the PPA is, analogous to ATP and WTA in tennis. When you show up on the PPA tour as a pro pickleball player, you show up on behalf of yourself and your partner if you're playing doubles. And then Major League Pickleball came around in 2020, 2021 to offer a team format. So the Texas Rangers franchise this year will have 2 men and 2 women on our roster of 4. And when we play against another team, you play men's doubles against their 2 men, women's doubles against their 2 women, and then 2 games of mixed doubles with your mixed doubles pairing, 1 male, 1 female. So a great TV product. The players liked it a lot because it wasn't, at the time when the talent pool was a bit smaller, the same people winning every weekend on the PPA tour. And it definitely disrupted the pickleball landscape, I think, in a great way. Now what we're seeing is the team format and the unified PPA MLP structure, with everyone steering in the same direction. We're incredibly capitalized. And actually, it just came out a few months back that on average, female players get paid more than WNBA players in Major League Pickleball and PPA Tour. So we're super excited about the business as well, and the amount of incredible athletes that are now pouring into pro pickleball.
Yeah, that certainly is an encouraging statistic. And you mentioned investing earlier, and we'll definitely not forget that. We'll set that aside just on the proverbial table in front of us. Let's talk numbers, though. What sort of count of people are sort of involved at this point from a viewership or sort of watching standpoint? How big has pickleball got?
Yeah, viewership is is kind of the crown jewel for pro sports leagues, especially in the U.S. It's that media rights deal that takes an emerging sports league like Major League Pickleball into the quote-unquote big leagues. Maybe not the big 4, but definitely to a new era, a new phase of growth for the professional sports league that is able to sign that media rights deal with any network individually, or a group of networks that we're seeing in some of the established leagues. So that's a bit about the kind of viewership and how it plays out into the growth of Major League Pickleball and what we're super focused on over the next 12 to 24 months, and then what we're communicating to some of those TV networks. On average, we're seeing incredible numbers for TV viewership. And what we're pleasantly surprised by is the 40, 50 million people playing recreationally, because the sport kind of, what I describe is, it falls under Bushnell's law as a game. It's easy to learn, tough to master. When you get into it, I'm sure you've felt it too, Jordan. You continue getting addicted and more into the game the more you play it. And that's because it is tough to master, and it's a very layered game. And what we're seeing at the amateur level is actually the huge addressable market of people who play pickleball recreationally are spending the time now trying to learn the game at the pro level and watching it on TV. So we're excited about the kind of loyalty in viewers that come and watch multiple MLP and PPA events. Now, is there room for growth and getting the average casual sports viewer to engage with Major League Pickleball and the PPA Tour? 100%. And I think there are many things that go into that, whether it's long form content or a real marketing engine behind the players and a conscious effort to put these incredible world-class athletes on pedestals like other pro sports leagues have in the previous decades. You think of Michael Jordan with the NBA. You think of, many other individuals that really spurred growth for a league. We're seeing it now with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. Like, that is a conscious effort by the league in not just the franchise, but the collective franchises to really tell incredible stories that these athletes are larger than life. And that's kind of what the next few years will also look like and what fans will see more of and kind of the content and marketing around Major League Pickleball.
Yeah, also great loose analogy, or maybe direct analogy there too, on that sort of, what we call the superstar effect, or maybe celebritization of particular players. And again, relatively uninitiated audiences. I think you'll find this with a lot of media and a lot of audiences out there, and it's really worthwhile to lay that foundation. What are some of those names that people might not be familiar with, and might hear from you for the first or perhaps second time on this episode, Evan?
I think there's one statistic that lays it out perfectly. The number one player in the world is a man by the name of Ben Johns, and when surveyed, those who play pickleball, only 3% could name the number one player in the world. And that is not a failure by us. I mean, the sport at the pro level, the league is very new, but that's where we need to place our effort 1000%. So Ben Johns comes to mind, the 17 or 18-year-old Annalie Waters, who is by far the best female player in pro pickleball. Those are some of the top two names. And then I'd say, biased, but our number one guy, Christian Alshon, who came over from tennis, is an incredible talent, very charismatic guy, and a guy who wants to be the best. And you can see it based on his interviews and the way he plays as well.
Right, and Alshon is on the team at which you're the CEO, is that right?
Yes, the Texas Ranchers.
Okay,
Yep.
you just want to put the two and two together for everyone else as well. Super exciting, and thanks for sort of laying all that out for us. Continuing with our analogies, again, this is so relatable, both on both ends, right? Penetration on that name recognition, maybe 3%, but almost everyone understands tennis, whether they played some pickleball like I have or none at all, which I would bet is still a decent contingent out there, including those who are listening. Maybe we'll call them the pickleball curious, Evan,
Sure.
if we just keep coining new potential terminology. One maybe practical question that you can help us with too is, in terms of consumption from a viewership standpoint, where can people most easily sort of watch this if they're interested in this sort of professional side of the game and consuming it in that way?
Yep, I think the best place to watch it is Pickleball TV, which can be also found on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And then linear, we've got a great relationship that continues to grow with ESPN and Fox Sports as the kind of top two partners there on the linear side. So, at any given weekend where there's Major League Pickleball on a Sunday or a PPA Tour stop where it's Championship Sunday, you might find it there. But I would say 24 hours of the day, there's always pickleball on Pickleball TV, which is a subsidiary and joint venture that we have with the Tennis Channel.
Good to know. That's Pickleball TV. We'll have to drop that link in as well, so people get your backlink juice out of it as well, Evan. Make sure people have an opportunity to at least check that out. And then since we're on a roll here, and it's almost a natural question because of so much an analog to tennis and certainly to other sports. What is, for those who are, have the inquiring mind around this question, Evan, what is the sort of crown jewel from like a competitive standpoint? Is there a sort of ultimate pickleball championships, some sort of, the Super Bowl, if you will,
There is
pickleball that people should know about?
There is. Yep, definitely. There's one regular season that we play in from April to end of August. in that end of August window, there's a quarterfinals that are played in San Diego. And then one of the best decisions I think the league made to date is hosting the MLP championships at the end of August in Central Park in City Pickle at Woolman Rink, an event that brings over 10,000 people to the event every single year.
Yeah, certainly some real density doing that there. I can't argue against San Diego either, though. Seems like not a bad place to play really anything outdoors, and certainly pickleball. And I promise,
They're not the capital of pickleball, though.
no.
I'll add that, Jordan. If you do a quick Google search, you'll find Austin, Texas is actually the capital of pickleball, where the Texas Rangers are based. So we're very, very proud of that. And we'll be hosting an MLP Austin tour stop over Memorial Day weekend at the end of May.
Yeah, sounds like it would be a natural part of the tour, and yeah, good opportunity to plug that. Certainly plug that as well. And I like I said, I'd promise we'd talk about the business side of things. You mentioned investing. It sounds like things are a little bit different. Let me just tease that out a bit more. When we think about investing in a sport, usually it's some investment in teams. Usually that's really reserved for, at least traditionally, Evan, some sort of pharmaceutical manufacturing billionaire family. That too has changed from what I understand. Tell us more, Evan.
Definitely. Like I said, I took that hard left from the, I would say media and tech worlds. And when I was coming into sports, and we could have bought the team with a small group of people. But at that moment, we took a step back and we saw with the growth of pickleball, the one thing we considered was, well, how do we from day one gain a competitive advantage against the other teams in the league and some of the other things that are going on in sports and the emerging sport landscape? I think you see a lot of new leagues pop up, a lot of deal activity in sports nowadays, especially with private equities, entrance into the NFL. And for us, we are more focused on building a brand. This is super important. We're more focused on building a brand that is seen as America's pickleball team than actually just being a team that wins on court. And that is very important to us, winning. But we, at every moment, want to place our brand at the center of pop culture and pickleball. And if we do that successfully over and over again and keep hitting singles, as I always say with my team, then we're going to be in a great spot as this sport continues to grow globally. So from day one, we oriented our cap table and our ownership group in a way that gave us that advantage. And I think it was different. I mean, you put it perfectly. It's the old, historically white billionaire who buys up a sports team or has inherited it even. I think over 40% of sports owners in the Big Four today are actually next gens who inherited the franchise from the patriarch or matriarch. For us, we've got three buckets. We've got the athletes and celebrities who help us globalize the brand and help us connect to new eyeballs every single day. We have the family offices who own sports teams, actually, who provide incredible counsel and insight into their experiences managing sports teams. And then we've got the third bucket, which is really unique as well, which is the agency bucket. So these are sports marketers, digital marketers, industry leaders who are the best at what they do and can keep our team pretty lean from a leadership standpoint as we continue scaling it. And that formula, those three buckets, and the people that we brought to the table, who all love pickleball as well, that's the key part, are all super instrumental in helping us become the highest grossing, most valuable team in Major League Pickleball.
Yeah, and certainly that is different from what we established for a relatively closely held, maybe you can say nepotistic approach, right? And I don't use that in necessarily a negative terminology, but just an accurate one for how these things get handed down, legacy sports teams. But in terms of maybe mechanics of investing and all that, just let's go into more detail because I think there's going to be a lot of curiosity there too. Is this sort of like a crowdfunding mechanism, essentially? Like how distributed, and sort of open is that door? Evan, tell us.
I'd say though our approach is whenever we have a fundraising opportunity, and we've only had two, the first question we ask is, do you like pickleball? If that's a no, typically we hang up the phone. No, I'm just kidding. But with Moose, always pretty often, if they're opting in and we're hopping on a call with them, we know they like pickleball and are curious about its growth, and are excited about its growth. The second question is, what superpowers do you have that you're willing to leverage to increase shareholder value? That is the most exciting part of my job, because we get Lil Wayne talking about his love for fashion and the opportunity to collaborate on our Ranchers merchandise with a notable owner like Lil Wayne. For other people like Bijan Robinson and Miles Garrett, who have a real connection to Texas, it might be building courts in underserved communities. And that really is where we start piecing together how on our roadmap we are going to activate our owners. Because I think we're entering this new phase of, strategic investing through these celebrities and athletes in the age of NIL that we're entering. It's not good enough to just be a name on a press release. I think those days are over. It's like influencer marketing. It's a flash in a pan moment. It's a firework display. There's disconnectedness from the second someone views the campaign with an influencer. For us, it's, again, how do we continue hitting singles and getting small wins with our owners to amplify the Texas Ranchers brand? And it's meeting them in the middle at what they're most excited about and at what point of the year, which is the hardest part of my job, they're willing to or available to activate and increase shareholder value for the Texas Ranchers.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. It's perhaps fundraising trajectory that you more commonly see in startups and scale-ups, for example. Getting perhaps, just to repeat this back to you, it sounds like relatively hands-on, or certainly relatively, right, hands-on investor base, this early on.
They
And
care. And they
yeah,
care. I mean, Bijan Robinson is based in Atlanta. We went down to MLP Atlanta, last year, and he drove 40 plus minutes in traffic just to be there courtside to support our players. All of our owners care. We have the best ownership group in Major League Pickleball, I think, really in sports, and it shows to our fans. I mean, you've got a great analogy with Ryan Reynolds and Wrexham. If any American came over there and gave it 50%, they would see it right through it, and they would not be as successful as they are in terms of revenue and in terms of results on field as they would if they gave 100%, which Ryan Reynolds is doing very successfully with Wrexham.
Yeah, that's another, I think, interesting example that's in the back of all of our minds, and now perhaps in the front, certainly. And then just in terms of what people are able to invest in pickleball, is largely it's the teams themselves, right? They're specifically placing investment in teams, and so they might have a geographical preference or something that's nearby, or maybe an affinity towards particular players. Is that generally what that calculus looks like?
I'd say market. Some people say yes or no because of proximity to the franchise of investing in a sports team. That matters to some people in their diligence. The second one I'd say is also they look for category leaders, either category leaders that they believe and back the operating team, like myself, and they invest because of the people, or they look at the those who are underpriced and aren't category leaders that they feel like they can totally kind of uproot the operating team, bring in their own staff, bring in their own people because they're underperforming. So I think there's two approaches, both from a proximity standpoint and then also from backing certain operating teams that we often hear about when people are diligencing the Texas Ranchers.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating. Again, it just seems like you're inside your sort of core wheelhouse. This isn't too far away from other business ventures that maybe you've had in the past, and treating that same way. And that's also maybe refreshing and different for you as well, Evan.
Definitely. I think I've always been focused on instilling purpose in my businesses, whether it's building one of the first e-com platforms to support minority entrepreneurs and allow them the ability to shop Black-owned, or creating a men's publishing platform that gave 50% of its digital ad revenue to a nonprofit of the user's choice. So for me, giving people, more, I would say the fans or the users, more purpose is something that I try bringing to everything that we do. And, it just so happens that it's now in sports. and I feel super fortunate to be able to do it, especially in a town that has so much opportunity like Austin. But I would say yes, I'm doing what I love to do, and I feel very grateful to do that here in Austin.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Always the case, and sort of something everyone I think strives for consciously or subconsciously. Um, and sounds like your fingerprints also are already on this team, and some of the hallmarks of some of the past things you've done exist there. And one last question on the sport, I think you'll love it, and then I'll give you the last word after that, Evan. Rivalries are huge in sports, and for the team that you're leading, what looks like it sort of has come to the forefront as that sort of big, maybe it's more than one, but sort of main rivalry for the Texas Ranchers.
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, we're loud. We're a very Texas-based brand in terms of how loud we are, and we are happy to share that. Not only does our team do well on court, but our team on the business side, front office side, does really well too. When building a brand and building a community and fan base. So oftentimes we have a target on our back, which is I think a privileged position to be in, and we like that about our team, but. Closely, I'd say the Dallas-based team, Dallas Flash, is the rival that at least we think about most. Just the fact that they're in our market as well, but also they won the championship last year, so we've got some work to do to take down the kings and queens of Major League Pickleball.
Yeah, great setup there, really, and yeah, it looks like a classic in the making. A pretty typical, maybe not typical, but sort of low-level Rage Austin versus Dallas is in the works, and it's great. That's easily within driving distance for the Dallas Flash fans who want to sort of put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, come down in Austin and see some games get played, matches get played against their core rival, the Texas Rangers, and that's for everyone out there. That's TexasRanchers.com. That's TXRANCHERS.com. Right, Evan? And
Yep.
then I want to make sure we got the other one out to them. It's Pickleball TV, right?
Pickleball TV and ranchers.com.
Yeah, awesome. Well, everyone check that out. You'll see it in the article coverage for all those iPhone, Mac, and other Apple products users out there. So the article version of this out on Apple News, as well as in the podcast. And Evan, it's been a real delight. I learned a lot here. I think everyone will too. I definitely want to give you, though, last word.
I'd say get out and play. Put a paddle in your hand and just, if you haven't yet, experience just how fun this sport is, and get your friends, get your family members out on the court. And, we've got summer right around the corner. Best opportunity, especially in those northern markets, to get out and play pickleball and, support the Texas Ranchers.
Awesome. Really appreciate that, Evan. Thanks again for joining us here on Court Daily Startup Show.